Welcome to another episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen, and I have Aaron Conant here. Welcome, Aaron.
Hey, how are we doing today, my friend?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for being here. I want you to dive in. Why would an e-commerce seller want to hear about monetizing their mental capital or want to hear about your ability to have taken what's inside your head and created something new that was monetizable? Why would they want to hear from you?
Because I think it's interesting from the side of, following your passion as a whole. And what I have a passion for is connecting with people and e-commerce. And I found this way of monetizing it by putting together a group of brands and using them collectively. We work together to then find out who's working and who's not in this space. And so a couple things is just around thinking about, hey, how to vet out new service providers. We're all pitched all day, every day in this space, but also then, hey, how do you build a network of people that you can rely on? And that is key, right? It's key from the standpoint of in all those sales pitches, there's a nugget of truth, but you're not going to necessarily pull it out from the person who's trying to sell you.
Yeah. I mean,
but
their job is to sell you.
Yeah, right. So, but if you can get a base from enough people about, what they went through with that service provider, the questions to ask, and we'll probably get into a little bit of, why I kicked this off as a whole. And it's kind of all embedded in that, it's tough right now. E-commerce is tough. So
it's a journey. That's what it is. It's a journey. Well, and honestly, I'm kind of wondering if Amazon wants people to sell on Amazon anymore. They're kind of, I'm getting this vibe of like, we don't really want anybody to sell here anymore. We're just going to make it hard enough that.
Yeah. Well, I think they're at the size where they can. The interesting thing is, Jeff Bezos back in the day when he was asked, hey, how long will Amazon go? He's like, I don't know, 20, 30 years is usually what, before a company goes bankrupt. Wait a minute, we're 20 to 30 years in. So maybe that's true. But yeah, I think Amazon at this point in time, they don't think they need to be partners. And everybody's looking for a partner. And quite honestly, nobody else is out there catching up with them. They're not. I mean, Walmart has stubbed its toe over and over again. I mean, if you're outside of a typical grocery run, a lot of people aren't doing a ton in the Walmart marketplace. You have the outside, the Sheins, the Temu's coming in, but still, not a lot of pressure, not a lot of rapid uptake. And so they know the game they can play. And they're the number one marketplace that's out there. And I mean, I think everybody knows they're very, very ruthless business people.
Yeah.
And they're going to play the cards that they have.
I don't know about you as a consumer, and this is a small anecdote, but I think the sellers think this is interesting. As a consumer, I have found myself looking outside of Amazon more now than ever before. And I think that's because I'm getting approached by more like, for example, at our household last year, we probably spent maybe like 2 years ago, we spent nothing on Temu. Last year was a couple $100. We've already spent a couple $1,000s on Temu this year, like as consumers. And it's not me, it's my wife.
Yeah, right.
Now, we're still buying things on Amazon from that perspective, but I find myself just based on the number of gaming that's going on and reviews, and just as a consumer, I find myself going out there. And I think I tend to be a little bit of a early adopter in a lot of the different things. Like I'm paying for the like Walmart membership thing, and I get like free shipping, and I mean a couple of other things like you do for Prime. And they were like, we'll pay you $50 in Walmart credit to take off some of the price. And I was like, I'll try it out for a year. Like, let's see what this thing is. But so it's been interesting. I agree with you that nobody's really pushing on them yet, but I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the flip side is that they're making so much money off from advertising in cloud services. I think that the next question is, do they ever get split apart? That's the reality. And then I don't think it'll be until that point in time or there's a significant impact to the ad dollars. On the advertising side, they're actually getting more friendly, right? It's pretty interesting what they're doing on that side. If you can take your direct consumer data and upload it to the marketing cloud and then have that specifically target people, opt the actual people out, retarget specific to that demographic and drive them via DSP back to your own site. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've seen a lot of money that's going that way. And adding to that with this, the Google third-party cookies going away, which they are going
Yeah.
away, that's going to be very interesting on people's search spend, traditional search.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting to see if Amazon is able to then soak up a huge chunk of those ad dollars. And if they do, they're going to be less inclined to reverse course on their non-partnership on the marketplace side.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it lands. So obviously you have kind of a front row seat to a lot of that. And that's that really feels like some of the mental capital that you've monetized. Tell me, what's the first time you can remember monetizing your mental capital?
Oh, the first time. That's a great question.
By the way, I've heard everything from like lemonade stories, had a guy who was running like a syndicate in high school. Like I've heard all sorts of different stuff.
In 4th grade, I set up a little thing called Aaron's Answers, and you could come to me and pay a quarter, and I'd answer, your homework problems for you.
Oh my gosh, no way! Was this a website?
No, this was just me in 2nd grade, or in 4th grade. Sorry, in 4th grade.
Answers,
Yeah.
Aaron. I think that
read
takes
this
the
book.
cake, man.
Encyclopedia Brown. I started reading those it's an old book series for little kids in 2nd grade. And by 3rd grade, I'm like, wait a minute, I think maybe I could charge people. And then by 4th grade, Mr. Davis's class, I was like, I can make this work. I can make this work. So enough to buy a packet of baseball cards or something like that. It was pretty funny. The entrepreneurial mindset,
Wait,
I started
hold on. I gotta ask, like, how? So you had people who were coming in like, I've got this homework problem I can't solve. I'll give you a quarter if you help me figure out how to answer it.
And we all had the same answer. So I don't know. It's usually math. Like I love math. It comes really easy to me. And so, yeah, I would just answer it. So I already had the answer. Well, everybody wanted help. Well, at some point in time, like you need to pay me for this, right? I'm doing the work for you. Yeah. So just a quarter. It's not much. Right. And it worked. I mean, it was literally, I aligned it. It was the milk money. Right. And I'll get their milk money. They could drink water. So it worked out for everybody. And then I could get chocolate milk.
Nice. Nice. I love it.
It's funny you asked that. I hadn't really thought hard about that. You just asked that. And that was probably the first time.
So
right?
Actually, I think my favorite part about that is that you bundle it up and called it Aaron's Answers.
Yeah.
Like you actually went so far as to have.
I should have trademarked it instead of just kept going.
Is that domain name available? Because Aaron's Answers might need to make a comeback, my friend.
Oh, yeah, we should go to GoDaddy right now. We'll look it up. Yeah.
Aaron's Answers. So, Aaron, obviously, like you said, that's kind of born into you in this idea of like, you know what? I think I'm providing enough value here that I could charge for it. And then I get chocolate milk out of this deal. Like this sounds like a good opportunity. How, did you have people like parents who were kind of pushing in on the entrepreneurship side of things? What drove you to go that way?
I don't know. That's weird because it's something actually. So I've got 4 kids, and it's something that I ponder right now is instilling that in them young. Because I didn't, and I don't know how it popped up. I don't know if it was like a book I was reading or something, but that it was interesting because my mom was a nurse, my dad was a mailman. They just went to work every day, right? That's what you did. And so it was a good life. Hardworking, but not the entrepreneurial side. And so
man, a nurse and a mailman, that sounds like a story, man. Like one day when Aaron went to school, his mom was a nurse, his like dad was a mailman. Like that literally sounds like a story out of a book. And Aaron's Answers was born. Like this is impressive. So my kid, and she came with it too, because I didn't really push her in any of this. She's been doing like lemonade stands and that kind of stuff. And the crazy thing is she'll pull like $80 a day on a lemonade stand. And I was like, I was doing the math real quick and I was like, okay, hold on, stop. I got to remember that it was my one nice neighbor who gave her a $20 bill for the lemonade that was like the charity. I was like, there's only so much charity in a neighborhood. Like
Yeah.
$80 a day is not a repeatable sustain. Like, because I was starting to think like, okay, if I recruited this many kids in the neighborhood and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like lemonade stand on every corner, like fascinating to see her like just take the gumption and sell some watery lemonade.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
I didn't go like push her to go do that. She just did it.
yeah, it's funny that that side of it, but maybe she sees it in you, right? Maybe those are things that she just picks up. You don't really
Could be.
notice it, but then all of a sudden she goes and like, and then if you pour into it, that's the thing. In those instances, a lot of people look at it from the standpoint like, oh, it's kind of a hassle to get the lemonades, but it's that longer term. What are you pouring into people? And you want to pour into that. You want to pour
Yeah.
into
Yeah. What are ways, so just anecdotally, because we both have the same want here, and I think this is interesting. What are ways that we as parents can pour some of that monetizing your mental capital into our kids to get them excited about that?
So it's tough. My mindset is be the why not the why.
Mm,
Let's do a lemonade stand. Why
why
not?
not?
I ain't nothing else to do. I mean, really, right? Like, oh yeah,
Go
go
play
do
video
something else. You play
games or
golf.
yeah.
You play all
Yeah.
these different things. But for me, I'm like, why not? Let's
Why
go do
not?
it.
Why
Why not?
not? Oh, I like
And I
that.
think a lot of people are why people. Why? Why would you do that? Why would we do that? And being the why not. And the other thing actually is actually part of what I do today was Jeff Bezos and his idea of live a life of least regrets.
Mm,
I mean, I know he's not the first one to say it, but I was actually reading the A to Z book when I was getting ready to kick off this business, and it was like, yeah, like I'll regret not giving that a try. I'll regret it. I won't regret staying here, but I will regret not giving it a whirl. And so pouring that into kids as well, right? I mean,
mm.
obviously, younger kids, you have safety parameters, right? Like I want to juggle chainsaws. Well,
Why not?
I'm not.
I mean,
Why not?
hold on. We probably shouldn't juggle chainsaws.
Yeah. But those are things that I think kids pick up at a young age.
Yeah.
And I didn't pick up until a later age. And I'd rather, my kids pick it up earlier. The idea that they can do pretty much whatever they want to do, but also find something you're passionate about. And then you make money off your hobby, right? That's at the end of the day, right? Something that you love to do. Um,
So
so
Aaron,
that's,
I love that. Like be the why not. I think that applies to multiple. So I'm a huge proponent of like the E-Myth and some of these other books that are out there that kind of help you understand that there are multiple people inside you. I love the E-Myth says it best, I think, when they're like, everybody knows about the fat guy and the skinny guy. And the skinny guy wakes up January 1st and he's like, I am going to lose all this weight. And he goes to the refrigerator and he throws away all of the soda pop and all that other stuff. And then, you know, February 1st or so, the fat guy wakes up and he looks in the refrigerator. He says, where the crap's all the soda pop? And he goes out and buys it all. And so you've got like these two different people that are kind of competing. Well, the same way we have the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager. And if you're wondering what that is, go watch a YouTube video on the E-Myth for the manager, the entrepreneur, and the technician. But it really talks about that kind of these different personalities. The reason I bring that up is I think we can be our own why not parent for those other parts of ourselves and our companies to instill monetization of mental capital, not only in what we do on a daily basis, but also in what our team members are doing inside our company to monetize our mental capital better. So I'm curious, how do you take the why not approach for you? Like when you're getting up there for the day and you're waking up and some crazy idea pops into your head, how do you make sure that why not is what you say to yourself instead of why?
so there's a couple things. Usually the why comes with that sense of comfort and I don't want to rock the boat and I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm going to say, why would I do it? But when you say, why not? It's just the flip side of, hey, I'm going to give this a whirl, but I need to satisfy the little bit of the why, right? Just because I do have kids at home, right? I've got the family. I have to care for them.
Interesting.
And so when I look at it, my background, I'm actually a chemist. So I spent 6 years at Pfizer making drugs for phase 1 and 2 clinical trials. And I found out one thing there, that I love people and there's nobody in a chemistry lab. It's just you and your beakers. Um, but what I did gain in there was that this life, but really specifically around e-commerce as a whole, it's a giant experiment. We're at the forefront of doing stuff that nobody's done before because it hasn't been around forever. In-store marketing been around forever, right? E-commerce, digital, but to get rid of some of that apprehension and be comfortable with why not, it's not like you're just throwing, grabbing a bunch of stuff, throwing it up against a wall and seeing what sticks. You need to take a step back and say, okay, I'm going to set this up and I'm going to have a hypothesis and I'm going to pick the stuff I'm going to grab. I'm going to pick the wall I'm going to throw it up against, and I'm going to choose how hard I'm going to throw it and how much I am. And then I'm going to analyze what happened. And when you're controlling those variables, you can get actual answers, and you don't always get it right the first time either. So as long as you're comfortable with taking multiple shots at it, but you have to have some discipline around what you're doing and the data you're collecting. Because if you're just randomly throwing stuff up and trying it, then
You'll never know what's actually working.
yeah. And so
I think
that
that's
for me takes away that apprehension around, hey, you know what? It seems like it's uncontrolled, but I'm controlling every aspect that I can possibly do. The outcome is uncontrolled, right? But I can control the variables that go into it.
Interesting.
And so, I mean, a lot of that, when I was building an early Amazon business, I was just one of the ones that was trying stuff as fast as I could, changing, holding single variables constant over and over and over again, while other people were just pumping in paid media. And I think everybody knows, like on Amazon, if you're selling, if you don't have a great detail page, right? If you don't have something that's going to convert, you can keep throwing paid media at it, but if the conversion rate isn't high, it actually is hurting everything that you're doing. And you have to spend more money to sustain the sales because you're going down in search rank. So, that's one example, but that goes to a lot of things. I mean, even in life as a whole.
That's so fascinating. When you're talking about that, I just got off a conversation with Nan Dean. He's one of the new majority owners in Seller Labs. He's actually an 8-figure seller himself. And I just barely introduced him to a book called Never Split the Difference, which is such a freaking great book.
Everybody.
Yeah. If you have not read Never Split the Difference, go get it off the shelf right now. That thing, in the book, it talks about how why in any language is actually a confrontational term, which I had totally forgotten. Like I had totally forgotten that was part of the book at all. And
me too. And I've read it twice. It's funny.
Yeah. So it's just funny how you pick up different things as you go through it. But this is literally like yesterday or the day before that I was talking to him about this. And he was telling me yeah, I really hadn't considered that why really is a confrontational word. Like when somebody asks you, hey, can we go to the movies? And you say, why? Like that actually puts someone on the defensive immediately. Because it's all about well, okay, now I got to justify myself. It's almost like the why question is like, you're stupid. Why? Like you might as well say you're stupid. Why? Or like, I don't understand you. Why? Like it's such a non-empathetic word. So when you were talking about why and why not, I talk about the antithesis, right? Like, why not is like, I agree with you. I'm in with you. So you take all the negativity and you add just a simple word, not, and it's like, I'm in. I agree with you. Let's dive in. It just, my brain's kind of reeling with this idea of why and why not.
It's so funny. Like, just to keep going on that a little bit further, is you were just talking about the inner, sides of us that argue back and forth.
Yeah.
And you have the one side that's like the why. And if it's talking with the other side, it's extremely confrontational. Or if you start off with the why not, then like everybody's cool. Let's go.
Hey, now we're going. So if you've seen Emperor's New Groove and you got like the little angel and the devil sitting on their shoulders and like just the conversation that Kronk's having with the two of them. And, it's like, and I think my favorite part about the whole dang show is when, the guy's he's like doesn't have a really good reason anymore, and he's like, look what I can do. And he like jumps up and he's like doing a one-arm push-up with one
Yeah.
hand down. And he's like, really? And he looks over at the angel and he's like, no, he's actually got a point. Like, on. But it is really interesting how sometimes our brains, like you said, if we sit from the mindset of the why guy, how often do we miss out on opportunities
All the time.
that are sitting in front of us? Opportunities to connect with our kids, opportunities to make more money, opportunities to instill entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs, like monetization opportunities. But then if we all go from the why not all the time, we also have some interesting issues there as well if you do it uncontrollably. So
Right.
I think it's very fascinating that you like found some middle ground there where you're like, no, I'm going to do the why not, but I'm going to insert some control in the variables so that I actually track what's working, and I'll do why not all day long. And then I'll
Yeah.
continue to do why not in the things that are working best.
Right. It's part of that is you have to be comfortable. Everybody sees at the end, right? Everybody sees, you know, so we're 7 years in, right? And things are they're humming along, and they're like, oh, that must be amazing. Well, they don't see the first like 4.5, 5 years of 70 to 80 hours a week. And the flip side is a lot of times people see the successful entrepreneur after 5 failures, and they don't ever know there was 5 failures.
No, they don't.
So you have to be comfortable that part of failing, part of winning, succeeding is failing, right? You have to do that.
So it's fascinating that you say that, because this why not mentality is going to mean you're going to fail.
Well, 100% it will. Yep.
And
Simple. Unless you're randomly lucky, right? Like, right? I don't know how. My younger brother, man, he's the luckiest like kid forever. You put his name in a raffle, he wins it. It doesn't matter.
Aaron,
100 people buy scratch off lottery tickets. He wins. He's the only one. You can shuffle them up, hand them out, and then you can
I
trade
hate
it.
those guys. I hate those
And
guys.
he will win every time.
Aaron,
Yeah, it's funny.
when you said that, I sensed a stronger word being associated with my brother's one of those guys.
Well, yeah. He's awesome. I love him. It's just those are the things that are just like, "Ugh."
Okay, so if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to foster this mentality of why not in myself, in my kids, in my company, what do I do to be okay with that failure that's inevitably going to come?
There's nothing but failing. And then you see on the other side of it, it's okay. But we all have this sense of we're afraid of failing, right? Nobody likes to fail. If you get comfortable with it, you realize it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what other people think.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people are caught up with what other people think about them. In a certain extent, you should be. But whether or not your business makes it or not, there's this, what was it? There's that study done where we all think everybody's thinking about us all the time, but they're
Yep.
not. We're thinking about themselves.
Yep.
And they have this guy wear a bright pink, I love Barry Manilow shirt through like the casino. And you get to the end and you ask him how many people noticed you. And he's like, 80-90% noticed me. And you go back and you ask people, like nobody noticed him. They don't. Most people aren't thinking about you unless you're right there talking with them. But we have this idea that everybody's thinking and judging us, and they're not. So do your own thing.
So I actually founded a Christ-centered emotional literacy group where we just dive in and like learn about emotions and all of that kind of stuff. And the technical term for what you're describing is called projection. And it's where we take what's inside ourselves and we project it onto other people.
Yeah.
And so when that man's walking through the building, he's projecting his own embarrassment onto the entire room and saying, they all know, they all know, they all know. Yeah. Like for me, it was going late. I was in charge of streaming the sacrament meeting for our church services. And one day we were late. And so like the meeting is starting, the hymn is going on, like the prayer is about to go down. And my little family of 4 is running up to the front. And I'm like setting up a camera so that the people who are at home who don't want to be there because of COVID can like watch the services. And so not only are they all noticing that the stream's not live, but the entire congregation is behind me, looking at my back while I'm like standing up in front of everybody, putting up my camera. And at that moment, I was like, everybody in this room thinks I am a total schmuck. This was like I'm telling myself, everybody in this room is, and then my emotional literacy kicked in and I was like, wait, if they do, that's about them. I don't care.
Yeah.
If they do, even if they do,
who cares? That'll affect you.
And I was like, the most free moment I've ever had in my life, because I was like wearing the Barry Manilow shirt in the middle of church, like everybody looking at me like, what the heck is that guy doing? No, I don't even care if they're looking at me, because this is my own stuff. I can do whatever I want.
And as soon as it's done, they don't think about it at all, ever again. And you're going to think forever that they are.
Yeah. To this day, I'm still confident everyone remembers that day we were late. And
yeah, right. Nobody does, right? Yeah. In your mind, you remember it. But it's funny because that's then impactful. And you're the only one who remembers it.
And I'm the only one who, for me, the day is burned into my memory. Like I can relive that. I can still remember fumbling with the dang screw. Like I can remember the color of the screw and the way it felt to put that stuff, because my hand is up here and it's like almost as high as the pulpit. I'm down in the dang, but everybody can see my hand because I can still, like, my hand, the back of my hand felt hot because and this is burned into my memory. And if I were to go through and ask every single congregation member who was there that day, remember the day that I was late? Maybe 10% of them would be like, maybe. I might remember that.
See, I think the biggest issue there is you didn't routinely show up late. So we're routinely late to church, getting all 4 kids out and there on time. So in that case, I would have been like, do you remember the day I was late? They're like, last week or the week before or the week before or the week before.
Touche. So you can create a little bit of a brand for yourself if you're doing it over and over again.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's important to recognize that for me, what was a catastrophic failure in being late that day, and like I can still remember the sensation of and the heat, like somehow their eyes are heating up the back of my hand. No, that's my own emotions that are heating up my hand.
For sure.
Right. So like for me, what was a catastrophic failure, I mean, nobody cares. So why not? So why not be a little late to church? So why not be, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's really important to recognize that, like, we are our own worst enemy in the why game.
Yeah, for sure. And it's actually freeing. You think it won't be. You think you're going to fail more. You think people are going to think about you more and they're going to look at you as a failure. Because nobody's actually doing that. When you get there, it's actually quite freeing and you just have to do it. Like you have to get to the other side of it. And you realize,
Aaron, how do you feel about the guys that are failing? Like when you run into an entrepreneur, he's like, yeah, I failed like 6 times and I'm in the middle of my 7th venture. Like what goes through your head when he says that?
First, I'll have to have the conversation with them. Like, are you the person that is just randomly throwing stuff up against the wall and randomly seeing and hoping something finally hits? Or are you the person that methodically is going through and testing and seeing and it doesn't work? And you're like, all right, this isn't going to work. I'm going to wrap it up and I'm going to go try something else that I think is going to work. And so there's 2 different ones there.
So what do you think? So for me, the first thought that pops into my head is holy grit. Like that dude, like you've seen, I don't know if you've watched like the second Trolls movie where he's like, I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Yeah.
You know, if you've ever listened to that song, like I get up again, like that whole knock me over. Like I'm thinking like this dude is like the Energizer Bunny, like on the ground, nothing's going, and he stands back up, and here we go again. Like, wow, like that's my first thought, and then I'm wondering, like, is he actually doing any like testing here, or is
exactly? Those are the 2 things, right? Yes, I would say the perseverance is amazing. What's going on the back end, right? That's where you have to have that conversation. Like, so this person has no idea what they're doing. They just don't want to work a regular job. It's never going to work, but somehow they piece it together. Yeah. I've got a buddy that's on like his 12th venture, right? It's like, you got to hang it up at some point in time. You don't got it. Right. And I know them well. And maybe if they got out of this, throw whatever up the wall, here's the thing is everybody, people think they can find an easy way to get rich quick. Right. And so everybody's looking for the silver bullet or
Yep.
everybody's looking for that. And I say, hey, you know, the only silver bullet that's out there is hard work. It's hard work. And that takes time and hard work. But
Oh,
again, it gets back to
and
the
that
point.
hard work part.
Yeah. And again, it gets to that point where people always, they see success at the end. They don't see all the hard work that goes in at the beginning. Right. And they're like, oh, you're so lucky. You've got this. And I'm like, yeah, lucky. That's it. You know, I'm just lucky.
Right. You're your brother, the guy who can,
Yeah.
gets that lottery ticket every
Yeah.
time.
Right.
So, okay, so it isn't just a why not attitude. Because just the why not attitude, I mean, you could be your
Why
friend
not
who's on his
perseverance,
12th
hard work?
venture.
Right. Yeah.
Why not perseverance, hard work? But there's another aspect to this. How do you decide what to start tracking? Like you said, like the key here is tracking the variables so that you can begin to understand the outcomes and adjust. How do you get the mental fortitude or the grit to start being like, you know what? I'm actually going to make a hypothesis here.
Yeah. Oh, well, and you have to be comfortable with that. Your goal. So here's a quick thing. The goal with a hypothesis is not to prove that it's right.
It's to prove it,
Yeah.
period. Prove it
And
wrong
so,
or prove it right.
right. Here's what I'm
Master.
thinking. So I've got a goal. This is I've got this hypothesis. I think it's going to work out this way.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people do in this scenario is then, because I've done enough work with data. I can have data tell me anything, any story I want. And so you have to realistically look at the data and have the data tell its own story. And then if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, hooray.
Yeah.
As soon as you proved it right or wrong, you do another one and you do another one and you do another one. But picking those, it's all business dependent, right? At the end of the day, want to make money. We need money to pay for housing, pay for food, pay for college education, or whatever it might be, right? Gas. We need to make money. But that can't be the goal. So many times that's people's goal. I want to make money. Like, okay, but how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And what are those stepwise things that if you do these 10 things, you think you're going to make money? And maybe you do the 10 and you don't. Well, then you have to either I'm going to give up on it, or I'm going to give another 10 and then I'm going to see if I can do it. But it's taking that due diligence to break apart what are the items or what are those different things that go in that ensure you make money, right? It's tough. That's the tough part, right?
So talk to me about your group thing. Like, did you, with these groups and these webinars and everything that was there, what were some of the things like obviously you figured out a way to make money now. What were some of the variables that you were like, I had to start to control this to the point where, well, we tried an event that was like this and it didn't work out because of that. Like, what were some of the variables that you began to identify so that you could actually figure out what the equation was?
I mean, in this case, so I do a lot of networking. I was just so people, I was on the brand side and I'd grown pretty big Amazon business, some direct consumer, help with some Amazon EU stuff. What I was finding trouble was finding the right people to help me out, the right service providers. I didn't have a big team. And so I wasn't getting the budget to hire people. So you need to find partners. You need to find an Amazon agency, a web dev agency. And what was really hard to do was find people that were legit, because you can do Google searches, as everybody knows, and you don't know, and you can take sales pitches it was IRCE back in the day in Chicago. It's sales pitches. And so in this case, it was, I'd rather talk to brands and put together groups of brands and do these think tanks and networking and knowledge sharing. So the first one is, well, who do you invite? Right. And do they have to be up a certain vertical? Do you only do fashion and then only do beauty and then only do housewares? Or does everybody like the cross-pollination? Everybody likes the cross-pollination.
Interesting.
So figuring that out, like depending on, okay, how many people do you invite?
So wait, hold on. I like that a lot. That's an interesting one. So somewhere along the line, as you were kind of designing the group and putting it together, you had this hypothesis. Well, I know that the events are kind of a cool thing. I wonder if the cross-pollination. So you probably went and said, okay, I'm going to try a beauty one. I'm going to try a health one. I'm going to try. And then you were like, okay, now we're going to try one together. And just based on the conglomerate results of the 2 or 3 experiments, you were like, okay, everybody loves the cross-pollination. And that now as a fact. Like I heard it in your voice. Like, this is irrefutable.
Yeah. but this is one of those hypotheses. That's what I thought I would want, right? And it actually worked out, which is great. So then you think cross-pollination. Okay, well, if I'm going to do an event, do I do it on a single topic or do I do it on multiple topics? And the reverse is true. Like I thought we'd want to have this great big open conversation and we'd tackle a little bit of Amazon, a little bit of direct consumer, paid search, social, like however the organic like flow of the conversation. Nobody likes that. That seems like chaos.
Nobody likes that. So, I mean, that's fascinating because you were able to figure out like, crap, this is not the way to do this. And so much so that it created all sorts of interesting shifts for like, I love this. Okay. So imagine, Aaron, that you were handed a cell phone and this cell phone can actually call back to Aaron's answers. So you're now calling back to Aaron's answers. And we're going to assume that this young student of entrepreneurship that doesn't even realize he's into that can actually internalize the advice you'd give him. So we're going to assume that his intelligence level is high enough that he can internalize it. What piece of advice would you give him that might help him in this journey of experimenting faster or picking apart all of this journey of monetization? Would you tell him? Would you tell him to do differently?
I would tell him to, number one, don't stop, because there's more to it than the money you're making, right?
There's
That you're
more
gonna
to it
get
than the quarter.
Yeah. I would tell him to do more subjects than just math. And I would tell him, obviously variate the pricing. What's the elasticity there? What if they're willing to pay $1? And that is not to make more money. That's to understand your value. And are you undervaluing yourself?
Interesting. So, I mean, as you push into those different pieces and give him advice around that business, I can see how you're immediately what you've really done, Aaron, is tell him, look, you've got an equation here. And if you can figure out the equation and start to adjust the variables, control what's going there, you're going to figure out what starts to stick to the wall.
If I could only go back.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, we look at where the sum of our lives and the sum of the experience and everything else is there. And I've thought about that too, right? Like, man, and that's part of why I built the Entrepreneur's Apprentice matchmaking program I was telling you about before we started recording, where I help these young entrepreneurs connect with these experienced entrepreneurs, and I just matchmake. I did that for myself in both instances. Man,
Yeah.
when I was in college, if I had had a mentor
Right.
like that, and if I was a young entrepreneur and had a clone, like, wow, what synergy. And so I think exactly like you said, like as a seller, you were like, man, if I'd only had people who could tell me which service providers are the best ones. Like that's really where all of this births, right? Is us finding a need that was so felt that we were like, you know what? I'm building a solution for that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that idea that if I'm having this pain point, I think other people might be too, right? And so how can I connect everybody? How can I connect everybody? Yeah, because we're all better together. Like, let's work together to get to a better outcome.
I love it.
Yeah, that's so much.
Aaron, I love it. Two things. Who's the person you're most looking to meet right now? What's the, is there a service provider group or a type of seller that you're looking to connect with? I want to throw that out there so that as people listen to the episode, 10 years from now, you're going to get intros for this because this episode's going to be that famous. But who are you most looking to meet right now? That's my first question.
It's holistic. Anybody that's doing cool stuff in the digital landscape. That could be Amazon. It could be direct to consumer. It could be service provider. It could be brand. I love people. I don't know why, right? But I love people and I love e-commerce and I love just having conversations. And the cool thing is, like, I don't sell anything to brands at all. It's all free for them.
Yeah.
It's monetized through sponsorships of events from the people in the network are saying, these guys are awesome. I'd love for you to do a dinner with them. And we reach out and we say, hey, we've got 10 brands saying they love you and they'd love to do a dinner.
Beautiful.
So it's literally anybody in the space. The service provider side, I love staying on top of the new tech that's out there. We're in such an interesting phase now as money starts to dry up. There's, the PE VC money A lot of the little ankle biters that were out there that were trying to just, really quick flash in the pan tech, that's going away, which is kind of muddying the waters around who the great partners are. And
Mm,
then the ones that are legit are making it, and they're getting some of that money poured in.
yeah,
And the rate at which new stuff is coming out that's legit, it's
it's crazy. Yeah, with
5 years
AI
from now,
right
it's gonna be
now.
bunkers.
Okay, so I want you to imagine real quick. We're gonna do two things here with our last couple of minutes. One, I'm gonna give you 60 seconds. You've stepped into an elevator with a totally cool dude, like a dude who's doing something cool. And I would like you to tell them about, why they should network with you, right? Why they should take a meeting with you. So you're gonna have 60 seconds to basically invite someone to take that meeting with you. After that, I'm going to have you give any tip, trick, hack, or book you've read over the last year or connected with over the last year that's helped you upscale your monetization of mental capital. So I'm going to time you. I've got 60 seconds here on the clock,
I'm gonna do
and
it in under 60, but maybe I'll go 60.
you're going
We'll
to do it in
see.
under 60. All right.
I'll tell
Well,
you.
we're going to see. Here we go. Ready, set, go.
So basically the elevator pitch, is that what we're going for?
Mhm.
Um, I would just probably greet him and I'd say, hey, I run a giant networking group for digital executives. There's over 9,000 that participate. We do over 100 dinners that are all free to brands, networking and knowledge sharing, so we can get better together as a whole. I spend most of my days talking to brands that's start up the Fortune 100 up every single vertical, food, fashion, CPG, whatever it might be. And that's everything from startup to Fortune 100. And I just really love people and love picking their brains on the newest trends, strategies, and pain points that are shaping the digital landscape. And, love to network and knowledge share with you as well. People that are out there, just look me up, ping me on LinkedIn, shoot me a note, and love to put some time on the calendar and just connect. I'm not going to sell anything. I don't have anything to sell. Just really, really great conversation.
Hey, wow. You did that in like exactly 60 seconds, my friend.
Okay.
Nailed it. And I can endorse that your conversations are good ones, and I've already had awesome connections from you. So if anybody's listening and is questioning that, definitely reach out to Aaron. He's well worth the conversation. Tips, tricks, hacks, or books that you've come across in the last year that have helped you kind of upskill or go to that next level of monetizing your mental capital.
Yeah, I was just looking up here. Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. That is a fascinating book. I love Never Split the Difference. I love Malcolm Gladwell, but over the past year, Pitch Anything is a deep look at the psychology of selling and why so
Ooh,
many people fail and why certain people just naturally have it. And they don't know why they have it. That's this guy. He didn't know why he had it, but he had it and he kind of picked it apart. And it was
interesting.
incredibly fascinating, especially if you're looking to sell things. And also the flip side, if you're getting sold. That's, it goes back to when I was always trying to find the right service provider. I felt like I was always getting sold, and some of these guys were just that good. So that's Pitch Anything. It's a fantastic read.
Interesting. And so this is all about kind of helping you understand how to go and become better at it, or
Yeah, it's the psychology of selling and selling to people and what's happening in their brain while you're selling and why you're pitching is going through the pitch. So it's actually the pitch, not necessarily the emails, the leading up to it, but in that pitch, you're finally in the room to make the sales pitch. How long you have and who you're talking to and reading the people and what's going on in their brain based on, how their brain works and how, like the why statement, like
mm,
little things you do that might trigger them to be defensive that you don't even know about.
mm,
And then flipping it and removing all that so that you're intriguing to them, knowing when to walk away, knowing where to set the
I
price.
just bought it. You did it. You did. Aaron, you did well reading that book. You pitched me. I'm in. I just
Yeah,
bought it.
it's so
Um,
good. You'll love it. You'll love it,
I'm
Will.
excited. I'm excited to. I always listen. I do Audible, so I literally just bought that book. I'm gonna go take a listen.
Yeah.
Aaron, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show today. What best way to get in touch is LinkedIn? You want people to reach out there?
Yeah, and LinkedIn. Yeah, ping me there. I also have a podcast, Digital Deep Dive. If people want to listen into that. Will have you on that for sure.
Cool.
And that's just bringing in other digital leaders for
Love it.
a deep dive on what they're doing. So yeah, reach
Aaron,
out.
pleasure to have you. And that's it for our episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital.
Thanks so much, my friend.